Hello everyone, Revan619 here. I have finished my home move and I am back, so I thought I would give you a little video update for where I am with the builds. I'm about at the midway point in the game, so I'm getting close to like level 25. I've been updating the build spreadsheet, which I will put below, and once I've finished then I'll do a video guide going through basically how I built all the characters, why I built them that day, the sort of gear that I've been collecting, and I'll do it for early game, mid game and end game. But I thought I'd show off what I've got going with my ranged Pyromancer build so far.
Isn't this a job for the serfs?
But yes, one thing I am learning very quickly is, my goodness, was my melee Pyromancer build overpowered. Yeah, there are a lot of encounters that, even with a really good team, and I'm having to optimize a lot as I find out how much my Pyromancer carried everything, that, yeah, it's not as good. Everything is not as good. You can't one-turn things as easily. Like, you still do a lot of damage. Like, look, bam, AoEs. And then we look at all these numbers here, and with the pain channeling backdraft combo that I've been coming up with and using here with press the advantage, you do a lot. Like, look at this firestorm. There is a lot of damage going here. A lot of the excess damage gets pain channeled to something else on the map. So you are doing a lot of damage and you are spreading it out, but it's just, it doesn't do as much as the Pyromancer, because the Pyromancer literally just keeps taking turns. It just moves around the battle and goes absolutely ham. I'm also setting up a Malpain Shroud version of the Vanguard for A-Blood, because everyone, everyone seems to want to have this tank style, where everyone's like, I want a tank, I want a tank, I want a tank. You don't need a tank. Like, tanking doesn't really work. By the time tanking takes off, it's late level 20s going on level 30s. By that point in the game, good builds can one-turn every encounter, so you don't need a tank, so you're not really going to be taking hits. Yes, you want a warrior, because even if you, say, have a dodge tank or just something with high armor at the front, that's very useful just to have that to soak up some of the enemy attention. But you can still go into Arc Militant, use Cautious Approach, and suddenly you're a better tank than the actual so-called tank build. But what you can do with Malpain Shroud, with A-Blood, is you can allow it to really stack temp HP, and then you can use that temp HP as damage. And there's quite a few items that you can pick up as you go along that increases willpower and fellowship, which you can also use that to give other allies temp HP. So yes, if you like that whole to feel tanky playstyle, this really does suit that. So I thought, rather than keep pushing my bias to everyone saying that, look, I just don't think this is the best option, and I have shown on my previous playthrough just how powerful that you can make a warrior Arc Militant, then I thought I might as well show as much as you can possibly do with the Vanguard. Now, there are versions of it that you can use slash with dual weapons, so that way you can obviously dash through things and then get 2 double hits with Scissoring Strike. That is actually very good because it gets your attack economy up, because one of the problems with Vanguard is its attack economy is very bad because it doesn't have Wildfire. Yes, it can crutch on the warrior's heroic action of unlimited attacks, but you need the momentum to do that, and so then that means that you need to absorb the finest hour from the officer, which can then take it away from better DPS. So whilst it can slowly start to keep up, you will notice it is way less effective. And like even here, Cassia, because she uses perception for dodge, willpower for damage, and then per number of talents she has, it increases her fellowship, she doesn't really need a tank herself. At the same with like the rest of the party. The only one who's really squishy is Argenta. Argenta dies a lot early game, struggles to hit things, but as she gets into heavier stuff later and she gets her power armor, that's when she becomes really self-sufficient and self-reliant. One of the real hidden gems of this game is definitely Jay. Yes, she does have the bad version of Finest. Also, as you can see with Argenta, I have shotguns on it for area attacks and burst weapons on it for, well, burst weapons. So yeah, no, very effective. But yeah, Jay is one of those hidden gems where she can do a lot of damage and build up a lot of stacks of momentum to really buff other allies. So she can become a little battery for building up a lot of momentum buffs for allies to increase their damage, and she can also use her fellowship bonus to enhance allies' damage quite a lot. So she's really good. So I say you always really want to bring Cassia and Jay, because the 2 officer buffs. More officers than that, you start running into overstacking with finest hours, and there can be a few issues with that. Yeah, if you have your own officer, you're probably going to want to run Santic, so you can actually do damage via the Santic staff. If you try to do it straight up with Jay, she's fine. If you try to recreate Jay as another officer, you run into some issues with that, because obviously you don't have all of her pistol passives, and there's a lot of unique stuff that Jay has that makes her really good, that obviously other people don't have. Yeah, so where was I here? Pascal, I was thinking about, because he has a unique heavy armor, but he only starts off with 30 strength, so you would need to get to 45 strength, which is, it's 3 strength upgrades. Then you need to take the talent for heavy, power armor. So I kind of think that's too much of investment. I don't think it's really worth it. I don't know what they had planned for, obviously his reject the flesh thing, but they didn't really implement it, so it's kind of like a dead stat. So his default stuff isn't very good, but there are lots of good medium armors that you can just throw him into, and he just, because of reject the flesh, he gets 10 extra armor anyway. So yeah, it's just better just to keep Pascal in medium armor. Yeah, Argenta light, Jay light, Cassia light. There's also armors that can increase their stats based on their actual skills, so I'll talk about that later when I go over their one-to-one videos. My ranged Pyromancer in light armor as well, pretty much the same as my melee Pyromancer. I've started building Heinrichs to be a melee Pyromancer. Really good actually, because before I didn't like Heinrichs because I felt like he had no use. But I realised I could kind of turn him into a slightly worse version of my Pyromancer build, but because obviously he gets Biomancer and he gets Santic, so he gets up there a little bit slower, but before Act 3 you should be able to get Shield of the Emperor, but not quite Hammer of the Emperor, which will actually be very useful for the rest of my team, because obviously once I have Hammer, I can use Hammer and the momentum buffs from there, because obviously Jay can stack momentum, Idara can stack momentum, because I also build her into a battery, and then with Heinrichs using Hammer of the Emperor, that means those big Firestorm and Molten Beam AoEs that I'm doing on my strictly range Pyromancer, yeah, no, that's going to do a lot. It's going to do a lot. It's funny, a lot of people refer to, so even I've been doing it, I've been referring to my original Warrior Arc Militant Pyromancer as a melee Pyromancer, but realistically his melee are stat sticks. Like, he does a lot of blasting, and pretty much as much, if not more, than the ranged version, and he doesn't trigger Perils of the Warp so much. The amount of times that with having Idra in the party, I've accidentally summoned a demon and then wiped my own party, ridiculous. But yeah, no, this version, very different playstyle. It's still quite enjoyable, but it's definitely weaker than the other Pyromancer. But it just goes to show how strong he is, because obviously playing this one, I've had to be a lot more reliant on grenades, a lot more reliant on stims, a lot more reliant on med packs, which means I've then had to optimize my party much harder. So it's actually been a very good exercise. I've seen the flaws that my party had that was literally being hidden by how OP the previous Pyromancer was. So Ablard here, we can show off a little bit of what he can do, if we can actually land hits. He's suffering from a little bit of weapon skill issues because of perception, but that's because this is also a boss enemy, but he does get a little bit better in some higher levels. So I'm just going to quickly use his AP here. His defensive stance allows it, basically when enemies attack him, he can parry and then attack back. There's some gear that you can get later that when you do area attacks, it forces everyone to attack you, which helps you build up stacks of Bulwark. Not on whatever the Vanguard unique stats called, Unyielded Beacon or whatever. Yeah, Bulwark's the ability.
Someone else can do this.
Dodge.
Victory is imminent.
Alright, 48 non-crit. Not too bad. We are early level 20s here. But we will get movement every time we get a kill now, and yeah, he'll get rolling back now. The only problem here is we're almost in turn 2, whereas by now my Pyromancer had one turn this entire counter and been able. Anyway, sorry, I had to take a little pause there. So you'll notice a slight cut there.
Follow my lead. I will do my duty.
But we can move them up here as a distraction from the other buffs. Like I said, Vanguard, it's not too bad to have sort of like a target which you can use to pin enemies. But like I said, Warrior Arc Militant just does it better. It just does everything Vanguard does better. Pascal still got the really awesome abilities to stack up almost a lot of armor to make your team invulnerable. I should show off more because for some reason on the Reddit, a lot of people really hate Pascal since he got nerfed. Yeah, and obviously arguing and trying to discuss builds with people on the Reddit is it's painful, dudes. Basically, people are still operating on misinformation from pre 1.2, and if you deviate from any of the YouTuber builds, mass downvotes. So at the same time, whilst people complain that there's not much information that's useful and up to date for 1.2 online, it's because people are gatekeeping information by not realizing that they're biasly misinforming people. Because obviously things have changed 1.2, and a lot of the strategies from pre 1.2 don't exist. Because before 1.2, all officers got an extra turn. Everyone that gave you an extra turn could allow you to give an extra turn and bring it down. So if you had 3 officers in the party, you essentially had 6 uses of bring it down, and you could stack them as much as you could possibly. And when you use stuff like move, 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 you could give 0 AP buffs to other people. So say you had Heinrichs or Idra in the party and you use move, move, move. Rather than just get movement, they could then cast all of their Psyker buffs for free, 0 AP. And so you could skyrocket stats. Idira was Cassie was able to target herself with her self buff, so she could skyrocket her stats to then skyrocket other people's stats. There was huge ways to stack obviously willpower, psi rating, and all sorts. But and then essentially you could even use tactical zones with combat locus to give people infinite armor. And it basically made your party untouchable, unkillable, and you'd have like 30 turns before the enemy had even done something. So people are still going off that, and they were able to crutch on suboptimal builds. Like, obviously Argenta could use both the area abilities and the burst abilities to super stack damage, so she was doing like 20k burst fires and all sorts of craziness. Same with like the assassins. The way lethality work was very different, so you could do crazy damage on range from that, but none of that works that way. So a lot of the weaknesses of a lot of builds that are online really get shown off, that they're just not viable, and they won't even get through daring, let alone unfair. And like the other things I've noticed is a lot of people, when it comes to builds, they say, well, I get through unfair on this, and then you test it out and it's like, yeah, you're in turn 6 or 7 or 8. Yes, you get through, but you're taking a lot of injuries and traumas, so that means you're going to have to go for a lot of loading screens. Ideally, I don't want to do that. I want to win as quickly as possible whilst taking as little damage as possible, because every time you take damage, you're risking taking an injury, you're risking taking a trauma. If that happens, you're then going to have to sit through loading screens to go back to earlier areas. Even worse, there would be times when you can't go back to the ship, so you can just sit crippled, such as like Act 1. So it's very important how you do your builds. Which is obviously why I'm trying to get things updated, because I really don't want people like working off old information where they're really struggling. I want to get as much good information out there as possible so people can have a much easier time to get through. Hopefully my builds will do that, but again, the builds that I'm going to give you are going to be based on my own bias, so I'll pretty much explain, this is what I did, this is why it worked for me, this is the sort of mentality that I use with it, these are the items I found useful. And then people can go for there and change it, because at the end of the day, the builds that I'm going to give you aren't going to be perfect. But they're going to be optimized to suit my playstyle the most. So, naturally, yeah, you're going to want to change a lot of things. But it should help you as a good base. It's just something you can start with to then start doing it yourself. Because this game is quite overwhelming to go in. Your first playthrough, I think it is good to have, like, if the game had preferred builds that the developers put in that you just auto level up, that could get through, say, normal or even daring with a little bit of a push, that would be good. But the game doesn't have that, so I'm planning to be your version of that, but I am designing it for unfair. And yes, unfair 1.2, much harder than pre 1.2, and it's also the AI is a little bit different. So before, in the Aura fight in Act 1, he didn't try to destroy your entire party. He focused a lot more on damaging the ships. Now he wants that butt. he is here to get you. Yeah, so basically the hardest bosses in this game is definitely Act 1's boss, the tutorial boss, probably the second hardest. And then later on it's pretty much easy. You do have to be prepared for the Act 3 boss, but that's the challenge there is mostly you can't respec, and you get stuck trying to bring the Xenos, and the Xenos are not good builds. Mizahi, terrible. Urilet, not the best, but she has nothing special. So yeah, you do struggle with them, and then obviously people will cope because obviously a lot of people have elf sexual fetishes, so they will cope pretty hard on saying that no, they're actually good, and they're not. Like, I've seen people say that the best companions in the game are the Xenos and the Space Marine. Unfortunately, they're the 3 weakest companions because you get them later, so you can't fully respec them. They have limited gear options, and their unique abilities aren't that good, which is a shame because Ulthar is definitely my favourite companion.
Am I getting paid for this?
But like I said, I'm gonna do the best I can and show off of that. On my build spreadsheet, I've also added a section for someone else from the Owlcat Discord. He makes entirely different builds to me, whereas I make builds to actually play through the game, and it's level by level. It's designed to survive the encounters that you're coming to. His builds are very much tailored to his end game, his every item in the game spawned into my inventory, so I'm going to make the best thing that I can at either level 35 or 55 on whatever I have, which is everything. So his design mentality is different, but if you enjoy respecking, maybe it'll be something that will suit your playstyle better than mine. So it's going to be just another option for that. But we are now in wrap-up duty. So yeah, the Pyromancer, like the main thing I do here, I use Ignite to set up where I want my AoEs, and then I use Run and Gun to follow up with Press the Advantage to do big AoEs. I've also got some of the Soul Talents that make my second ability do more damage. Once I've got Mysterious Silver, I will open more of my Staff, because that will give me a damage boost. But as you see here, that big AoE down there took out the boss enemy up here. Beautiful. Hits everything. So it is quite good, it is very useful. But like I said, look, I'm coming towards the end of turn 2 to finish this battle. My Pyromancer single-handedly had already cleared this by now. It's very different. It's definitely very different. Thinking about it, yeah, the DLC is coming very soon. By the time I get internet back, it's going to be around the 18th, so that's probably when this video will be going up. Yeah, I need to finish my current run, make builds for all the companions, and I've actually been considering a different leveling path for my Pyromancer, so I will make a separate video about another alternative thing, and I'll link the build spreadsheet in it as well, because I'm changing so much all the time. I can barely keep up with myself. Nice. There's a good brutal strike there. But yeah, there's a lot of things I need to go over and catch up on, and just try to help get some more positive information. Like, at the end of the day, I'm never going to have the perfect information for you, and there's probably going to be some other people know the system, but I'm willing to get into all the communities, have those conversations, and start testing stuff, building stuff, and trying to help newer players, or give some different play styles, because obviously everyone plays the game their own way. There was people discussing doing Officer Vanguard with a priest base. I would have never built that, like, but apparently it works. So yeah, we'll have to go over all the different little doohickeys and doodads. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna do a little variant of my pyro, because I've got the original way that I built it, and I got through unfair, and it trivialized the whole game, which was really nice. But now I've got a different way that I would have leveled it, which works out the same at the end, but it gives a different level process and feel. So yeah, I'll upload that, and obviously I understand a little bit more about the items, where to get them, how the interactions work, and what everything does, and a few different ways to use the system. But yeah, I'll start getting some of that stuff together. Any stuff that you are looking forward to seeing, want to know, do let me know. I'm trying to work on a warrior assassin build, because Mizahari, he's just so bad, but I'm going to see what we can do to recover him, and if not, just make my own version and just be like, yeah, kill the Xenos, make your own custom character. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, this fight's done. So I just need to smack this guy in the face. But yeah, like, I'll put the build spreadsheet below here as well, so you can see where we're going with everything as well. But yeah, originally, yeah, because the Argenta's still got that heavy bug, I do like having her with flamers and shotguns for area stuff. You can also do melters, and it works pretty nice, but yeah, that then also suffers from the bug.
As the Emperor commands, I act.
Make sure we put on all the buffs. Flip. 69 and 9. Nice. Yeah, why not? Let's just take the burst fire. It doesn't matter if it even hits my Vanguard. Use tooth. Oh my god, is it still just not this guy? He's on the floor, on fire, bleeding out, and he's still hanging there. Make him dead, Jay. GG. Alright, thanks for stopping by. See ya.